Today on Musings of Rin, I thought I'd talk to you about the phenomena that is raising simulators. Basically, a raising simulator is a video game mechanic where you have a boy or girl being raised or trained in a vocation where you make choices on how they spend their day. Depending on your choices, they will raise a set of RPG-like skills, which as the game progresses allows them to face challenges. Depending on their training, the story will progress in different ways. They could succeed and unlock new paths, or they could fall flat on their face and fail sometimes catastrophically. By the end of the game, they'll choose what their vocation is or unlock an ending. Sometimes they'll find love and who they want to marry. Sometimes they'll become famous, do something important, or fade into the obscurity of a modest, simple life. When I say raising sims, most people think of games like Princess Maker. This game came out in 1991 and was released by a Japanese company called Gainax. They're probably better known for being an animation studio responsible for Neon Genesis Evangelion. In this game, you have a little girl who is a war orphan. As a male soldier who has just defeated a demon, you are granted this child as an adopted daughter or ward. You can dress her up, give her pocket money, send her to town to meet the locals, but most importantly, you choose her daily education that shapes who she will become when she reaches adulthood. It's kind of a fantasy medieval type setting. There was also a mini RPG adventuring component where you wander a dungeon if you choose to test your combat skills, explore, find treasure, and handle other events. Now, throughout the years in this game, there will be festivals and tournament challenges where she can test her skills. Overall, there were 74 possible endings in the original game. She could become a soldier, a mason, an archbishop, or a crime lord. Depending on her stats, she may or may not be good at the job. Also, depending on the stats, she might get married or have children. Now, this game wasn't as widespread and was only translated into English and Chinese. I'll come back to later about why that might have been. But that said, it was popular enough in these regions to warrant making a sequel. It was translated into Chinese and now also Korean. The sequel was translated into English by a company called Soft Egg, but was never released as the publisher, called Intracorp, which was in Florida, went bankrupt. Some of us played that bootleg version that spread through the internet in the mid-90s. Plot-wise, it was very similar. A war hero raises a ward to the age of 18. She can adventure, she can choose courses, and by the end of it, she gets her life path, vocation, her marriage, maybe kids. They released games one after another up until as late as 2008, where they got to game number 5. They also spread from PC to the PlayStation and the PlayStation Portable. More recently, a Korean developer called CFK Co. Limited, along with the Japanese publisher Blissbrain, has rebooted the series in the 2010s. They've updated some of the original art and provided more translations to reach a wider audience. Now, the series itself was so popular it spawned off a Japanese anime called Petite Princess Yusi, which ran from 2002 to 2003. It was also released by the game developer Gainax, which kind of made sense because they were the animation studio. The series ran for 26 episodes and was kind of a tongue-in-cheek acknowledgement of some of the tropes of the series. Basically, a 17-year-old girl was trapped in a 10-year-old's body, and she wanted to win the right to earn a magical tiara that will let her grow up. She goes to a princess academy where she experiences different types of jobs and meets a variety of different people as she is faced with different challenges to earn that prize. I'll be totally honest, it was kind of a wholesome girls learning to get along with different people, slice of life type story. The art style was a little bit dated, kind of 90s-esque, but definitely watchable. The only thing that bothered me about it was that it was kind of sketchy. The 17-year-old girl who looked like a 10-year-old had a flirty romantic relationship with the guy who was older than 17. But I'll come back to that issue later. There's actually an earlier game in this genre from back in 1985 called Alter Ego by Activision. In this game, you're given the opportunity to start with a random psychological profile or create your own by answering some personality questions. Next, you go through the different stages of life, where you walk down a life path by clicking on icons for different event types. You're presented with a question which you have to answer, and this changes your personality statistics and affects your inevitable outcome. Now, I played through this game. It was a little bit wonky. Some of the events are nostalgic reminders of your childhood, like whether or not to steal the cookies from the cookie jar, or help mom versus watch a TV show. But some are more disturbing overuse of childhood traumas, like dodging family pedophilia, or stranger danger, or accidentally playing doctor with a boy without realizing why undressing in front of him was bad. I actually got a sex warning disclaimer for one question asking, do you want to continue? I said yes, of course, and it ended up being just finding the parents' porn collection. I was mildly disappointed. I mean, it did get juicier as your character had ascended into adulthood, so I did laugh a few times. Now, finding a marriage partner in this game was frustrating. Every time I wanted my character to get married, the fiancé had sex with the stripper. I finally gave up trying to find a non-cheating male as my character hit the late 30s and just settled. The guy turned around, got cold feet, and just disappeared instead of showing up to the wedding. I wonder if this is a developer inputting some of their own real-world disappointments here. Is this what guys are saying is all we're going to get out of life? Too bad the game was made before the days of lesbianism was considered acceptable. I kind of felt like the developer was pushing me to switch teams. Anyway, it did get even more depressing when the game left you endlessly taking out loans to pay for school that never seemed to end. You applied for jobs, but it never worked. You never got the job. Finally, it let me have a part-time job for vocational training, and I joined the minimum wage crowd at the age of 49. Are they trying to imply I lived with my parents until they died? I think something with the game is super broken. I mean, okay, looking at today's society, it was a little depressing. Were they predicting the future for our millennials? Anyway, by the time I got enough money to pay back the student loans at the age of 59, they wouldn't let me do it. The game literally wouldn't even let me walk into the bank because my credit rating was so bad. Almost like they didn't want the money back. I ended up being able to wipe out my debt in old age at 65. That's when I bought a house and incurred new debt. What kind of bank gives out debt to seniors working part-time at 65? Anyway, I spent the rest of the game just working as a senior to pay off the mortgage on a townhouse. Now, those townhouses were way lower priced than ours are today, let me tell you. At 75, I was able to pay the loan off, decided to retire, but I got more money in retirement benefits than I did working for a wage. So, honestly, I don't know how the game decided that right. I tried for a while to finish the schooling. It just never happened. I guess that's kind of a statement that you can never stop learning. And that it might never help you find a job, because I never did find a full-time job. Kind of a buzzkill of a game, honestly. The ending itself was also anticlimactic. There was no ending. It literally dumped me on the start screen where I just restart and repick the personality test. Overall, it's nice to know these games have evolved a bit more over the years. So, what other games are there out in this genre? Well, there are a variety of these racing simulation games out there. I'll go through some of the good ones that are available today. Long Live the Queen is a racing sim by Hanako Games, released in 2013. It might be an American company, I'm not sure, as the creator doesn't actively publicize their location. You play the role of a 14-year-old princess, and you have to survive 40 weeks until she reaches her coronation at the age of 15. She chooses her own studies and weekly activities, and you attempt to survive the events that get thrown at you using whatever skills you helped her increase. In this game, be prepared to die over and over and over again, as she struggles through accidents, assassination attempts, and uprisings. Honestly, it's not for the easily frustrated. It's absolutely possible to win and get her crowned at the end of the 40 weeks. You just have to start planning and strategizing after knowing which weeks hold which skill tests. I encourage you to write it down and keep track as you're playing to decide which ones you want to pass. You'll never pass every skill test. You're not really supposed to. You could also do random training just to see what happens. I did that a couple times. That's always good too. The art style itself is kind of anime styled, and it's very well done. Our princess has a variety of outfits, which you unlock as you master skill areas. Most are tasteful, not that exploitative, and there is an ending telling you what happens with the different characters and areas of the kingdom depending on what your choices were. The story itself was actually very interesting. I think it was definitely worth a look if you're going to consider this genre. Growing Up was released in 2021 by Vile Monarch, a Polish developer and self-publisher. You start out with a toddler of either gender, and you direct their lives up until they graduate high school. The setting is in the 90s, so some of the events might be nostalgic for some folks. You choose to teach them basic skills which will improve a certain statistic level. Each class gets easier to complete as you unlock more points, gaining them by playing puzzle games at the end of each school day. Every so often you get an exam, which is kind of like a match 3 game, and getting a certain score level increases your grade and your parental rating. If you have a good parental rating, you might get bonuses. You can work jobs to make money to buy things, and you can do hobbies to reduce stress levels. It's relatively well thought out. The available friend circle and the story events shift every other playthrough, so there's some replayability to try a different path. Depending on which course areas you completed and which friend you stuck with, you'll end up with a different partner or job at the end of high school. The characters each have their own profiles, and there are LGBTQ-friendly dating options, but not everyone's bisexual. Characters will enforce their own gender preferences. Your previous child becomes the parent of your next child for your next playthrough, so it kind of plays like an endless loop. Family history stuck in the 90s. The art style is a little bit graphic novel-like, and the characters are multicultural and unique looking. The parents are overbearing at times, but are present, and it actually does feel like you're not raising the child alone. You have some parental pressures to do things. You can ignore them too if you like, just like a real childhood. It was a nice modern take on a raising sim. I Was a Teen Exocolonist was released in 2022 by Canadian husband and wife team Northway Games. It's published by Finji in the US. Basically, it's a more sci-fi theme. It's a group of colonists landing on a new planet. You have to choose either a male or female child, and you can help them increase their skills as they adjust to the new living conditions and events that occur on the colony. You can choose to interact with the other colonists to form bonds, and eventually a romantic relationship with one of the other children if you choose. Because it is an alien planet, you also get the opportunity to leave the colony and explore the surroundings to unlock additional story. Events require you to pass mini card games to get bonuses on skill learning or to pass events. You collect better cards over time by completing events successfully and making memories and forming other bonds as characters. The art style is kind of a hybrid anime graphic novel style, as characters are colorful and fun to get to know. It's kind of fun seeing your character move around the environment as well, rather than simply interact with UI screens as we commonly see in other racing simulators. The story can get a little dark, but most of the events are endearing, and it starts to feel like you're part of the community. There's a nice little built-in story mechanic for replayability, but I won't spoil it. It's part of the story. If you're interested, you'll find out what it is. The game is also LGBTQ friendly, and your character can be trans or gender fluid if you so choose. Your personal gender choices don't affect relationships. Pretty much every character in the game is bisexual. Apparently pretty open-minded in the future. The last one on my list is Volcano Princess, released in 2023 by Egghatcher and published by Gamera Games in China. As a single dad, you raise your daughter from a young age to adulthood. You live in a fantasy city where your daughter joins a night college and decides what type of life path she wants to follow. You set a parent goal and you try to make your daughter like you by behaving according to your goals. Depending on which college you chose for your daughter, they provide goals to meet to achieve higher knighthood status. You can adventure, work part-time jobs, be an actress on the stage. Like other raising sims, there are festivals that occur that have skill level based challenges that you'll get rewards if your daughter passes them. Courses become easier to complete if you have the right skill levels. These allocate more points to help you get through more events. There are a few other mini-games and side adventures, but I won't spoil the surprise. There is a wide variety of characters to meet and romance, and again, like most of the other modern games in this genre, your character is LGBTQ friendly and age friendly actually in this one. You can marry other characters present in the city regardless of their gender. There are opportunities for polyamorous relationships too, between the right sets of characters, so they're even more open-minded than some of the previous iterations. So, what is good about racing simulators? Why do people like these games? What draws them in? Well, there might be a variety of reasons that people like this game. Perhaps they long to have their own children and wanted to have a virtual test run of their parenting skills. Perhaps they were fantasizing about what it would have been if they had parental investment in their own lives and wondered if they would have been successful. Where would they have ended up? Maybe they're just curious about isekais and being dropped into new worlds and what that might have looked like on a normal life. Who knows? Maybe they just like seeing different branches and what-if scenarios and poking at it to see what happens. Now, why are these games bad? Okay. Some people interested in this genre might have noticed not all games have been released in North America. In particular, this includes Princess Maker 1, the original game. There is some controversy around the resulting job endings. One path had our ward joining the life of prostitution. Another path had our ward marrying their own benefactor, you, a much older man. There was a cheat way to remove the clothing of the ward. So, I'm guessing you can see by now what the problem is. It basically touches on our less than morally acceptable interest in sexualizing younger children. This particular game is an example that we as a culture or a society, we're afraid of child predation. We protect our children. So in North America, this type of game wouldn't have been looked positively by rating boards, that we rejected bringing them to mass production. So this prevented many folks from playing the original versions. When they did remake this game, they removed the nudity cheat and cleaned up the artwork surrounding the prostitution paths to make it a little bit more acceptable, allowing it to be released here. Overall, other games in the genre will always ring the warning bells and fail to pass the ratings board when the girls have skimpy outfits, questionable jobs, overly fan service events occur, or have inappropriate marriage candidates. Some of the guys bitch and moan saying, but it's not fair, the girls aren't real. But as women and concerned parents, many of us see these girls looking more like child beauty pageant queens than just pieces of artwork. Some of you in history might remember what happened to poor JonBenet Ramsey in 1996. This was a 6-year-old beauty pageant child who was kidnapped. Supposedly, she was ransomed by foreigners who wanted to exploit the beautiful child for money, as per a note sent to the family. But when, after being investigated, it found out she was dead in the family basement. She died due to strangulation. There was no evidence of rape, meaning semen, but sexual assault was not ruled out due to vaginal injury. So, yeah, let's have a moment in silence in the memory of this tragedy of this poor girl. Well, after knowing this girl's fate, you can probably understand why some of these games being published overseas are being rejected in North America. Here we really believe in protecting our children. So, overall, a note to publisher and developers, if you seriously want to release games in this genre to the North American market, please treat these animated girls with respect. Even the boys. Dress them appropriately, let them be kids, not sex objects. We don't care that they aren't real, they are still symbols of the idea of a child. We respect and protect our children, so we won't let you exploit even an animated child. No animated image, doll, or substitute for a child will prevent pedophilia from hurting children. It's just a stepping stone to letting people think it's okay to sexualize them. So, as far as we're concerned, it's definitely not okay here. In raising simulators, the child that you're caring for is under your protection. Many of these games have underage children in them, therefore the ratings requirements will be a lot higher than other games that do allow sex. The fan service allowance will not be as tolerated. Protectors of children should not be seen as exploiting them. I hope folks can understand why. Alright. So, in conclusion, many of these games are available on Steam and other digital store platforms. There are many more than I've described here. So, if this isn't a gaming interest area for you, I encourage you to explore and experience it. That's it for this week. I hope you find this educational, and thank you for stopping by.